Thank you, Gina, Barbie, and Jared. So I'll now introduce Bryce Fair. So Bryce is the Associate Vice Chancellor for Scholarships and Grants at the Oklahoma State Regents for Higher Education. He'll provide an overview of the Oklahoma Promise program. I'm going to now turn it over to Bryce. Thank you, Bryce.
Thank you, Billy. Just real quickly, our requirements for the Oklahoma Promise program are pretty straightforward. Students have to enroll in the 8th, 9th, or 10th grade. The income at that time is across the board of $55,000 adjusted gross income. That's not adjusted for family size. There's a 17-course core curriculum that's required and a 2.50 GPA in that core and overall. There is a 22 ACT requirement, but that's only required for homeschool students and students attending non-accredited schools, which is a very small proportion of our participants. There are some conduct standards, attendance, criminal or delinquent acts, substance abuse. Again, that affects a very small portion of our students. Students do have to begin attending college within 3 years of high school graduation. We have a second income check when students start college at 100,000 AGI. Beginning this fall, that will be checked every year in college for each of our participants. And they must also meet federal SAP standards. Our scholarship does pay the actual college tuition, but it does not include fees. Our award is a little more modest than the 21st Century Scholarship. We do pay for only the actual hours enrolled, and we do not have a minimum enrollment required. We do see students averaging about 26 hours a year. It's higher for those at our research institutions, lower at our community colleges. Scholarship's good for up to 5 years or the completion of a baccalaureate degree, and that is 5 consecutive years. And again, beginning this fall, we'll be implementing also a cap on the number of credit hours for which the scholarship will pay in college, being set at 129 with some automatic exceptions for degrees that require more than that. Briefly, our history, we started a couple years after Indiana did. Initially had a $24,000 income limit, stayed there until 1999 when it was increased to $32,000. And just 1 year later, it was increased to $50,000 was when the participation in the program really grew dramatically. At that point, $50,000 equated to about 60% of Oklahoma's families. So participation grew dramatically. 2007, our legislature agreed to implement a dedicated funding process that virtually guarantees full funding for the program, which is extremely important, especially in the last few years. Over the past 3 years, higher education funding in Oklahoma has been cut 20%, but this program has been spared that and fully funded. And then just last year, they did finally increase the income limit modestly to $55,000, and it's to go to $60,000 in a couple of years. Some of our data on the high school enrollment, you can see that it grew dramatically between 2001 and 2012, especially beginning in 2003 when it was increased to 50,000, hitting a high water mark in 2012 of about 10,600 in that graduating class of 2012. Has declined since that. We expect those numbers to kind of stay flat until 2020 when those coming in at the higher income limit will start entering college. The completion rate, again, these are somewhat similar to what you see in Indiana. Between 65 and 70% of our students that complete those high school requirements to be eligible for the scholarship. It's steadily increased the last 5 years from 65% to over 71%. When we look at their average GPAs, about a 3.4 very consistently over the years on their overall GPA, 3.3 in those 17 core courses, compared to about a 3.0 overall for all Oklahoma high school graduates. Our demographics, by ethnicity, those that qualify for the scholarship really compare pretty equitably to our minority populations in Oklahoma, just about right on percentages for Hispanic, African American, a little bit low for American Indian, which is a large portion of our population here. Gender-wise, very consistently, we see about 60% of our students qualifying for the scholarship are female, 40% male. At the time of application, that differential is about 55-45, but females complete at a higher rate than males, so we consistently see this 60-40 split. Geographically, historically, the program's been disproportionately rural in participation, though that's changed significantly over the last few years. Until now, it's getting much more closer to reflecting our populations in the rural versus urban areas, but though it's still slightly disproportionately rural. The percentage of our students that are Pell Grant recipients, again, the current number is very similar to Indiana. We're at just under 80%. That dropped as far as 55% when we started adding middle-income families back when it was first raised to $50,000. Since that income limit hadn't increased, the percentage of Pell eligibility went up fairly steadily the last few years. These are the number of actual scholarship recipients each year for the past several years. Again, you can see the number of participants receiving the scholarship increased, doubled between 04-05 and 10-11, has declined about 10% or 12% actually in the last few years. Again, we're projecting that to stay steady until 2020 when we expect to see modest increases again with the higher income limit. Our average scholarship, you can see at our 2 years, our regional universities, research institutions. Our most current year, it's pretty much been equalized at our research and regional universities at about $4,500 on average. It's about $1,800 at our community colleges, but the average award has increased about 5% per year as tuition increases. Our overall cost for the program, again, this was a real concern on whether or not the state would be committed to funding the program as it grew dramatically from 03-04 to 11-12. And 2007 was when they put that statutory funding process into place, which actually sets aside money before our legislature comes into session, and that's set aside for the scholarship, so it's not dependent upon annual legislative appropriations. In college, high rates of direct college going with students that qualify for the scholarship, consistently about 80% compared to about half that for non-Oklahoma's Promise students. Where do they go? They don't congregate at any particular type of institution. About 70% are at our regionals or public two-year colleges. About a quarter are at our research institutions. We have a relatively small private college sector in Oklahoma that's about 6%. They do consistently have higher full-time enrollment rates compared to non-Oklahoma's Promise students. We see that each year. Again, even though we don't require a minimum amount of enrollment, most students do go full-time. On this measure, we don't see that much of a difference in when we look at their GPAs as freshmen in college. They're generally just slightly higher than non-Oklahoma's Promise students. So as far as GPA, we don't see that big of a difference. It's more in persistence and graduation and enrollment patterns. Persistence to the second year, again, very consistent when compared to non-Oklahoma's Promise students, about a 10% differential there. This is when we get to kind of our ultimate measures, especially in talking with our legislature here. What are the degree completion rates? This is measuring the first associate or bachelor's degrees earned by the students participants. At the bottom, you can see the 5-year rate at the end of the scholarship period. And they're about 6 percentage points higher than non-Oklahoma's Promise students to complete a degree in that period. Since most of our students are at our state system institutions, we are able to track them out well beyond that 5-year period. And we do find consistently that a pretty significant percentage go ahead and earn an associate or bachelor's degree within the 5 years after their scholarship period. So we're able to show the legislature that over the long term, close to 60% of these students will complete a college degree, an associate or bachelor's degree, which is helpful in trying to keep this program fully funded. And this is kind of the ultimate question we get in Oklahoma is how many of these students stay in Oklahoma after they graduate college. A lot of concern about them going out of state. And what we're able to show them is, again, it's not a huge difference, but a consistent, slight difference of more of our Oklahoma's Promise students staying in Oklahoma after they graduated from college. The latest year, we had about 88% 1 year after college graduation compared to 85% of non-Oklahoma's Promise students.